from Mr. Furious Records. Today on Dat Fury Radio, we bring the fury! No, we talk with returning guest Corey Kibler. What's up, Corey?
Hey! Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for jumping in. We're doing some chit-chat this week and probably next week, and then I don't know what's going to be on the show. Cool stuff in the works, but just don't know how it's all going to shake out. But I've got a question for you today.
Yes.
And it goes... Where did it go? Here it goes. It goes like this. So, and this question, I wrote this question back in March. I'll explain. And it's a little less... What's the word I'm looking for? I'll cut this. It's a little... I mean, it's not the moment past in a sense.
Topical?
But actually, topical.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love topical.
Yeah.
It's a little less topical right now, but that might make it better. We'll see. So, back in March, Radiohead announced the formation of a new limited liability partnership, which is a business entity that they tend to create before they do relatively big stuff. And we didn't know what that meant at the time. Was it an album? Was it a tour? What was going to happen? Was it, a reissue? They've done this before. They did this before Kid, Amnesia. So we didn't know what it was going to be. Turns out that it's definitely the shows. There's like 20 shows in Europe this year. And that makes sense. The LLP was called RH, which seems like Radiohead, EUK, which seems like the locations of the shows both in the EU and in the UK. 25. And that's this year. So it seems like that's what it was. That doesn't necessarily mean that's all it will be, so we don't know. There might be other Radiohead things happening. The question, which is the same regardless of whether we know the full extent of what this partnership is for or not, the question is, what would a new Radiohead record mean to you if it came out now or next year or something like that?
I can't wait to answer this question. My dogs were just howling, so I muted. Yeah. If they start doing it again, I'll go get them and we can cut that out.
No problem.
Okay. What would a new Radiohead record mean to me? So this is one of those bands where I am like a lifer and I have extreme band loyalty. Like there's not a lot of bands where I will like automatically check out / purchase or whatever what they put out, but they're one of those bands that I will. And even if it's one of the Radiohead records that I'm into, but I don't like fall in love with, like King of Limbs. Like I really like King of Limbs, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is mind blowing like some other stuff. I know it's going to be really cool. It'll definitely be worth a listen. And at this point, I think it would be really neat. Like I feel like they've gone in a few different ways. What am I trying to say? It would be really neat to hear a guitar record again. Like not even the Benz-ish, although that would be really, really sweet. Like if there were acoustic guitar songs on there, that'd be pretty awesome. But even like Hail to the Thief, which is a record that I did not appreciate to the fullest extent when it came out. Like
it's aged pretty well, which
it's aged extremely well.
Expect at the time, yeah.
No, when it came out, I was because there was let's see, in that like 4 or 5 year span, there was Kid A, there was Amnesiac, and then there was Hail to the Thief. I'm pretty sure is the order.
Mm-hmm.
And I really was, I guess, expecting something in a similar vein to Kid A or Amnesiac, which I love. Both those records are incredible. And so when I heard Hail to the Thief, I was like, oh, this is really cool, but it wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't what I was expecting, I guess. And so I kind of shelved it for a really long time. And then like 4 years ago, I heard a Radiohead song. Maybe it was There. Is that a song on Hail to the Thief?
Yeah, that was the first single from Hail to the Thief.
I think I heard that like out of context, and there's something about hearing a song from a record out of context that like really makes it stand out. And I was like, holy shit, this is really, really good. And then I went back and listened to the record, and it turns out the whole thing is really, really good. And it would be neat to hear a record of like 3.5 minute guitar songs with live drums. That would be pretty sweet. And whatever, if they came out with something, even if it wasn't in my like top 4 or 5 Radiohead records or something, it would still be more interesting than a lot of the other stuff I hear, I guess.
Yeah, I think I basically feel the same, and I did have this in the back of my mind when I suggested we listen to A Moon-Shaped Pool the other day. And I think I agree with you that I'd kind of like to hear something different. I think the floor is probably... So A Moon-Shaped Pool, not my favorite Radiohead record. Fantastic closer to the discography. I mean, and it seems set up that way. And we talked about how I think neither of us had listened to it for a while, and that version of True Love Waits kind of caught us by surprise, and just... I mean, what a place to leave it if that's what they choose to do. I think the floor on a new Radiohead record is probably something like, sounding like, if not literally, a Moon-Shaped Pool B-sides.
Yeah.
Which is amazing in a way, but is
still
not
really cool.
What I want to hear from them 10 years on necessarily. I would love to hear something different. I'd love to hear something that's kind of 50% Johnny's orchestral stuff, maybe, if there's a way for that to work.
Oh, I would die for that. I would be so over the moon for that.
I don't think they'd ever do this, and it's a shame because it'd be awesome, but I would love, write and demo whatever you want, but do a record where the performances are live. Like, actually just put out, mix and put out the live in the studio, kind of everybody played at once. And
I would also kill for that.
Put those versions out, more of kind of a In Rainbows. I don't know if In Rainbows was actually made that way, but
it sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and that kind of vibe. I would love something like that. No matter what the songs don't have to be, In Rainbows-y, but just that method. I think would have a lot of energy. Would it feel good or bad or something different to have another entry in the discography? Do you kind of feel like the discography is complete and maybe should be left alone, or...
Ooh, that's a good question.
Are you prepared? Because I'm, 5 years ago I would have said I kind of like leaving it at A Moon-Shaped Pool. But now I kind of feel like I'm actually ready to hear something different, and enough time has passed. There is this body of work. I think I could hear something new and appreciate it for whatever it is, and it wouldn't change my feelings about everything that's come before necessarily.
So I think when I was younger, I wouldn't say I'm like a completionist, but I was very I felt very purist or something about discographies or records, right? Like I really wanted no extra anything. Like I'd way rather have a record that's like 8 or 9 songs and just terrific than a record that's like 14 songs with some that are hit or miss. And I still feel that way, and I do really, really like it when things are like, whether it's seasons of shows or discographies or something, are like super high quality and they make sense as a complete sort of thing. As I get older, kind of what you're saying, I worry less about something like if they put out something, and even if it was kind of like boring or they rehashed stuff they'd done already, it wouldn't take away from what they've done so far. Like I wouldn't be like, well, that's a bummer. It's not like, right, finding out your favorite comedian is a creep and now you can't listen to anything they've done and enjoy it the same way. It's more like, I think it's cool that they felt, I mean, like, Radiohead doesn't need any more money. I don't think they're ever going to make a record for a cash grab or anything like that. If they make new music, it's because they're excited about it, and they're into it. And so if they put it out, even if it's not my thing, if they're into it, if they're excited, if they still have something to say, then I'm down to hear it. Man, just you mentioning In Rainbows just reminds me of how exciting that was, because it was a surprise Radiohead record. Like, there were rumors they were recording, but nobody knew, and then it just sort of came out. It was the first ever pay what you want record, at least on that scale. And like you said, even if it wasn't recorded live, it sounds like it was recorded live. And I remember how energetic the whole thing felt. Like, it was like, I wouldn't go so far as to call it like a party record, but like hearing 15 Step, like turning that on for the first time, I was like, fuck yes, this is awesome. Because you don't know what to expect by a surprise record. You're like, what? Even I remember when A Moon-Shaped Pool came out, I was living in Denver. It came out, and you were like, yeah, I want to get it, but I want to wait until they have a certain form, or I forget what was going on, but I remember I bought it, and I think I just sent it to you. Like, we just shared it or something, and I haven't listened to it. Like, I'd listened to it like a bunch then, and then maybe a few times in the last year or so, and I hadn't listened to it since then. So it was kind of like listening to it for the first time the other day when I listened to it. And True Love Waits definitely caught me by surprise. But I would. Go on. Oh, I was just gonna say, I would kill for another guitarish, live sounding record like In Rainbows. That would be awesome. That I've been listening to a ton of scores and orchestral music lately, and Johnny Greenwood's stuff is some of my favorite stuff. He does a lot of scores for like Paul Thomas Anderson movies, and a lot of times I like the scores better than the movie. Like, There Will Be Blood, the movie is amazing and the soundtrack is amazing, but he did a score for Phantom Thread, which was did you see that, Phantom Thread?
Mm-mm.
It's a weird one. It was Daniel Day-Lewis's last movie, and it was like a turn of the century fashion designer love story. And I really liked it. But even if you thought it was the worst, the score that Johnny Greenwood did for it was so good. I listened to it so much. And if a Radiohead record was that, with some vocals on it here and there, like, that would be pretty thrilling.
That kind of reminds me. So Brian Eno was on the Ezra Klein show this past week. I'll link to that, and that was. I love the parts. I love just listening to Brian talk about art and creativity and stuff. Ezra could have gotten out of his way maybe a little bit more, but it was a pleasure to listen to Brian, and he's famous, of course, for his oblique strategies, but he mentioned one that I had not heard of before, really obvious in retrospect, but you might be interested in this, and it kind of goes to what you're saying. He said when a group wants to generate fresh material, but is having trouble, he likes to subtract members and do all the permutations of all the different members. So if you've got a quartet, you've got a bunch of different duos, right? Drums and vocals, drums and guitar, bass and vocals, bass and guitar, and a bunch of trios that you can explore and just jam or try and come up with something new, and that you find new places but are related to what the band has done before with that method. And that would be a really interesting thing for a group like Radiohead to try at this stage. I'd love to hear what do Phil and Johnny cook up together and then bring to the group, or different things like that.
I love what I think my favorite member of Radiohead, which is a thing I don't think I've said aloud before, but I think my favorite Radiohead member is Colin, who I think mostly plays bass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his main instrument? it's weird because like Radiohead is such a like the rarely rarely is the bass the focus. Like on National Anthem, the bass line is the big thing, but a lot of times the bass isn't really what people are talking about. It's mostly like just I guess the songwriting, a lot of Johnny Greenwood, and Tom and even like Phil or whatever. But um, that would be really sweet to hear a bass led Radiohead
Totally.
record. That's not something I'd imagined before. That'd be super sweet.
I'm sure I've told you that Colin is my favorite member before, and
Is he
so that
really?
makes it interesting. Yeah, but that surprises me that you don't like King of Limbs as much, because King of Limbs is the Colin record.
Huh? I had not thought about it that before.
Oh, dude, go back and listen to it. Listen to the bass lines on King of Limbs are sick, and it's such a groove record.
I need to listen to it that way because when I listened to it the other day, I listened to it on my TV, which has a decent sound bar and thing, but I was working while I was listening to it, so I need to like headphone listen to it.
Do headphone King of Limbs and pay attention to the bass. It is sick. It's not my favorite. I mean, I can't say it's better than OK Computer or Kid A or things, but once you get past just the iconic ones, King of Limbs is my favorite kind of the next.
Oh yeah, sure.
The next tier.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, sorry.
Dog change, cape change, dog change. You're muted, buddy. There we go.
Yep. Good. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to King of Limbs with that in mind. It's sort of like, no, I'm not going to get into Fish. Never mind.
Thank you. I thank you for that.
Yeah.
There's one Fish recording I'll never be able to find. There was a night, I was still in high school, but I was listening to KDNE, Doane University's radio station in Crete, Nebraska, and I remember a night driving home from a late school event, probably rehearsal for the musical or something, and our old Little Red S10, Kidney on the radio, and this memory is so... I remembered which streets I took, which wasn't necessarily like my normal streets to get home that night. And there was just music on. I didn't hear the DJ say what it was or anything, so I'm just listening. And I had the moment where, I stayed in the driveway for like 45 minutes listening to this music that I just...
Whoa!
There were no breaks. It just went on and on and on. And eventually when the DJ came on, they said, yeah, that was Fish New Year's Eve show, such and such a year or whatever. I didn't write it down. What little Fish I've tried in the years since doesn't come close to that memory. Like,
yeah,
that's a loop that will probably stay open for my whole life, and I'll never find out which year it was. I've even a couple times I've tried to, so I know that night had to be in like 99 or earlier, so that's the latest the show could be. So there's only like maybe a decade's worth of New Year's Eve shows to listen to. I've tried a couple times. I just can't.
Yeah, well, it's so much material, and also like there are musical moments like that where you hear it at just the right time and in just the right place, and it totally makes sense. And then I've done that with movies so much where I've watched a movie at a certain time and I'm like, this is great, and I try to show it to somebody else, and as we're watching it, I'm like, this is not as good as I remember. And maybe it's just me projecting, but that happens sometimes. So like I can totally see a nighttime solo drive with Fish going on being like, whoa, I'm really into this. And then you realize the sheer amount of horse hockey you'd have to sift through to find and then by the time you found it, you'd be like, well, I'm not really into it anymore. I'm kind of over it.
This might be romanticizing it. I feel like I'd recognize it and still be into it, but yeah, I don't know. It might have just been a moment.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's my one Fish story. My one positive Fish experience.
Yeah. Yep. Everybody needs one. That's awesome.
Well, do you have anything else to say about Radiohead?
Not about Radiohead, but just now that I'm thinking more about what it could be, which is exciting. But anyway, yeah.
There's good possibilities, and I hope. Oh, I have one more thing to say. Which was just you were talking about how you used to be more kind of focused and hardcore about a discography or being a completionist or whatever, and how you've loosened up over the years. I've done the same, and I actually think that has a lot to do with death and mortality, and realizing that a B- record from a favorite artist late in their career is better than nothing.
Totally.
In a very genuine way,
Yeah.
That it is good to listen to, and we feel genuinely grateful for it, even if it's not an A+.
Right. Totally. I think I would have said when I was like in my 20s, I don't know, it always was such a disappointment to me when bands I loved put out a record that I just thought was like subpar or something. But like, first of all, I mean, that's like a very egocentric way of looking at someone else's musical output, right? Like if they're making records, if they'll sell them and if they're excited about it, or even if they're not super excited about it, even if they've just got some songs they want to get out, like if anybody at all likes them, then it's worth it. And like, or if nobody likes them and they just want to put it out, it's worth it for them. But I feel like a lot of times those records that I'm like kind of bummed about, I like so much more later on. Like I remember, this is a weird thing to, well, whatever. I remember I was really into the first few, like the first, like Clarity, I think was the first Jimmy Eat World record. And then there was Bleed American or whatever.
Yeah, there's a earlier one, Static Prevails.
Okay. And then they came out with Futures. And I remember at the time, I thought Futures I thought it was like way overdone or something, or I don't know what I thought, but I remember listening to it being like not that stoked on it. And I was all bummed because like, man, Bleed American was right before it and it was so good. And like, what's this or something. And I listened to it again, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it was incredible. Like it was super, super, super good. I just wasn't prepared to listen to it on its own terms or something.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of times when a record comes out from a favorite artist and it feels like a B- record, maybe it is. A lot of times it is, but sometimes I'm the B-. You know what I mean?
B- listener?
Yeah.
So I think some editions of Futures came with a full disc of demos. Do you have the demos to Futures?
I've never heard the demos, no.
I think they're out there. This pod will be a reminder for me to look, but
okay.
I think they included them because I think even the band themselves felt like they maybe succumbed a little bit to demoitis, or no, that's the other thing where anyway, the demos were awesome.
Yeah. I do think at the time my main beef with Futures was probably that the production kept getting slicker and slicker. And I remember you showing me like wave files of Jimmy Eat World songs from that era, and they were just huge and flat. And I felt like that's the thing that I really noticed the whole time I was listening to it. So
it's kind of exhausting to listen to. I mean, even Bleed American gets by because the songs are so incredible, but
yeah,
sonically it's just right up against your ears the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time. And even the When You're On, I Swear, whatever. Even songs like that are, like acoustic songs or less, whatever, it's still the same thing. It's like when I'm done listening to that record, I'm worn out, like my ears are blown or something like that. So that's how Futures felt, like right from the jump and all the way through. It was just kind of being shouted at or something.
We'll see if we can dig up those demos. I'll send them to you if I find them. I'm pretty sure they'll be widely available, like probably on YouTube or whatever, I'll put them in the notes. But
and that's something. Oh, go on. I was just going to say, and that's something I would love from just about any band. If Radiohead had a bunch of songs that they hadn't put out on records, but had like decent quality demos of, and put out like a triple album of that, I'd be thrilled, because I love song ideas. I love demo production. I would love, like, right when the Elliott Smith Estate, I guess, put out New Moon, which was a double album of mostly songs we hadn't heard, and then a few early versions of songs, but mostly songs we hadn't heard. That was awesome. They were so rough. They didn't do anything with them. I think they maybe mastered them or whatever, but they were already, in their final form or something. If Radiohead did something like that, or if any band did something like that, I'd be pumped.
There's a ton. I don't think you're a huge Wilco fan, but Wilco's really good about the reissue and expanded editions of their stuff. Has tons of exactly that.
I do like Wilco. It's hard because, so you're the one who recommended to me to listen to Yankee Hotel Foxtrot when it came out. And I listened to it and I absolutely loved it. I love that record so much. And it's hard. I think I have such tunnel vision.
It's the only one like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, oh my God, it's so good. And the other ones are really good. Like, the other ones are good. But it's like, I start listening to another Wilco record and it just makes me want to listen to Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. So I don't know. I bet one day they'll all be driving around and I'll hear a song on the university radio station or something like that, or I'll hear it in a playlist and I'll go, oh damn, now I get it.
Yeah, wow. I was thinking a question would be, what is the next, if that's the one you like what's the next one? But the answer is there isn't really.
Yeah, it's from what I can tell from trying to listen to other records, it's like the only one.
Well, and the membership was in flux around that time, and yeah, you just can't. That was lightning in a bottle for sure.
Yep.
I was gonna say something. Fuck, what was it? I don't remember. We're keeping it tight tonight.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move on to question 2. Listeners, will let you go. Cory will be back next week with another question. We appreciate you listening to Dat Fury Radio. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you're subscribed, and please share the show with someone else you think might enjoy it. We're picking up listeners, one by one, which is great, and would love to pick up a few more. My dream is to be able to pitch artists that I want to talk to and be like, hey, if you come on this show, that's probably about 10 sales on Bandcamp.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I would love to be able to say that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of reach we're trying to get to. And if you can help us out, we appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. Or hear you. You'll hear us. That's how
you'll hear us.
That's how a podcast works. You'll hear us next week.
I'll be watching you next week.
Ooh.
What time are you going to bed? I know. He knows.